Summertime bass fishing. Summertime bass fishing. Buddy, summertime has struck Oklahoma. There's absolutely no doubt about it. We have had the last 4 or 5 days heat index in the 110 plus. I'm talking 112, 113, 114 degrees. Actual temperature about 102. And that's why I'm in the shade right now. I'm sitting out here in front of our boat building. And I mean scorching hot. Now, you can still catch fish in the summertime. One of the ways to do it is do what I did today. Get up at 4:30 in the morning, got up at 4:30 in the morning, fished with a little buddy of mine from one of my neighbors down here. His name's Houston. Houston Daniels, Houston Daniels, his dad's name Daniel. Houston Arms, and they've got a great YouTube channel called Arms Family Homestead. He's an Oklahoma State Trooper, Daniel is, and so pretty good friend to have, a highway patrolman. But we got out there, we got up at 4:30 this morning. We were actually had our boat in the water before it ever got daylight. It was still dark, and we caught a fish on the first 2 casts. So one of the ways to just simply solve the summertime problem is to go early. Go early. Another one's obviously you can fish at night. There's not that many people running around out there. The bass bite really well at night during the summertime. Now, one of the things that everybody will tell you about summertime is worms, plastic worms, plastic worms, plastic worms. Little mushroom head jigs, little drop shot rigs, little tiny worms, go small, go translucent. Well, let me tell you another way I catch a lot of fish in the summertime. I try to find some offshore structure where I've got areas where I've got water that might come up to maybe 8 or 10 or 12 feet and then drop into deep water. I'm looking for points out in the middle of the lake. I'm looking for tree lines that end and then drop off into a channel or a ditch somewhere. And I look for those places, and I don't go in there with a plastic worm. I go in there with a jig, a football jig, or actually you can just use a regular jig, but I like to use a football head jig. And now what I do on that, in fact, you can just look at this because I just tied this on. I tie a loop knot on my jigs in the summertime because it gives more action to them. It gives a lot of action to your jig, lets it flow a little bit. Now, you want a lot of action. You want that thing to dance around, but you want that jig to be subtle. Now, how do you do both? How do you do both? How do you get a great action out of your jig and you want it to be subtle? Now, here's another thing that I'll do in the summertime. I'll take this weed guard here and I will fan it out like such. I'm going to fan that weed guard out because a lot of your strikes in the summertime are going to be very subtle strikes. You won't hardly feel them bite. If something feels different on the end of your line, set the hook. I fan that weed guard out like that. That way it gives a lot less pressure to push that weed guard down where the fish will get hooked, and it gives you a lot better area for it to bounce off and things and not get hung up quite as much. Okay, so here's what I do. I'm going to go, and I've got, now this is a brown and purple little jig that I've got right here. It's a small jig. Use a little bit smaller jig than you would normally use because you want a very slow fall. I'm going to come in and put this little drop dead craw on it. He's got 2 claws on a craw. 2 claws, Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus. 2 claws. And all the little baby claws. Put that on there. And you want that hanging straight. Now, you notice this, you say, well, Jimmy, it doesn't even match. You've got brown and blue on here, and this color you got right here, is called watermelon with black and blue flake. Watermelon with black and blue flake. Anything that says watermelon or green pumpkin on it, don't worry about all the other stuff they put behind it. When it says watermelon or green pumpkin, put it on. But I like to use contrasting colors like this. And you got that drop dead craw on there that's going to fall on there. The only thing it's going to be moving as it falls is the little tails. So you got action up here at the front because of that loop knob, and you got little tails at the bottom. Do not be afraid to throw the jigs in the summertime, in the hot summertime. Find those deep water spots out there. Anybody else that finds that spot, probably going to be throwing soft plastic on it. Probably going to be throwing little tiny soft plastic on it. Now that works, that's fine. And that's one of the tricks for catching them during the summertime. But what I like to do is just what I'm showing you right here. And you will catch bigger bass on this. You catch a lot of little bass on everything else. You'll catch bigger bass on this. All right, here's something else you want to think about during the summertime. Crankbaits work really, really, really good, right, also. This is one of my deep smoothies. Everybody knows that's my favorite crankbait. An American original deep smoothie made right here in America, Fort Smith, Arkansas, actually Greenwood, just right outside of Fort Smith, Arkansas. A deep smoothie, absolutely the best running crankbait you can ever imagine. It pulls like a dream, and it catches fish amazingly. Without a doubt, my favorite crankbait. a deep smoothie. And now this is, I can't remember what they call this, like a phantom brim or a phantom bluegill or a ghost bluegill or something. But it's a bluegill pattern color like you see in a lot of baits for summertime fishing, because the bass feed on shad during the summer, they feed on bluegill. Bluegill are plentiful. They're spawning every month. They're going from, there are millions and millions and millions of them being born every single month, just about every lake in America, so they're really feeding on bluegill. This is a color, I think it's called phantom bluegill, I just can't remember exactly. But it's in a Lucky Strike American Original. You can find them over at Bass Pro Shop and look in there. But this color here is kind of, every color is kind of keyed back a little bit. In other words, it's not real bright like that red ear that I love so much. It's a color that's kind of keyed back because the lakes get clearer during the summertime. So this color right here is a color difference that can really make a difference in you catching the fish. By the way, that's my favorite in the new Jimmy Houston Blaze Series rod, the purple. Oh, I love the purple. The neon green and the orange are cool too, but the purple, I love that rod and reel. Rod and reel sells for probably less than $100. They're not in the stores yet, won't be there till 2020. Here's the last little secret for summertime fishing. This is an early in the morning, late in the evening deal. This is a wake bait. It's a Lucky Strike Cajun wake. And what this bait does is it just leaves a wake going across the top of the water. What's one of the things that you see an awful lot during the summertime on any lake, anywhere in America, even up in the north part of the country? Snakes, little small snakes swimming across the water. And what do? They leave a wake. What do bass like to eat? Well, they like to eat snakes. So this looks like a little snake going across the top of the water. I fish them a lot of different colors. I like to have chrome on them, chrome on the bottom. And I will take and actually take my pocket knife a lot of times and knock part of that chrome off where it might look like a bunch of little shad going across the top of the water. You see those big schools of shad in the summertime? That's what they're doing over there. Here's another place you want to use this bait. A lot of our lakes during the summertime get really clear. I think of right off the bat, Table Rock over in Missouri. It's really, really clear. This wake bait will bring bass out of 30 or 40 or 50 foot of water. Come up and grab this wake bait. The other thing that happens during the summertime that is just absolutely incredible is you have other fish action other than largemouth bass. If the lake's got white bass in it, those white bass are generally chasing shad. They're schooling on top of the water. They are just a lot of fun to catch. I don't know a fisherman anywhere that when they see a school of white bass hitting on the top of the water, they can't stop and catch a few. The wake bait catches them really good. That smoothie catches them really good. Summertime fishing, again, plastic worms work good. All the different ways you can fish them, but it's not the only way you can catch them, and it's sure not the way you can catch the really big ones that we're all looking for.